Welcome to episode 33 of Sport SA Daily Diary. Today we'll be chatting to South African Paralympian Gavin Filpatrick. Good morning, Gavin. How are you doing today, mate?
Hey Adam, how's it going? I'm all good, thanks. And we've made it this far through the lockdown.
Yeah, it's certainly being a testing time for all. How are you coping with regards to exercise and carrying on training for your triathlons?
It's been going quite well. Like quite a few of the other guests that you've had, it was a really big scramble to try and get some training equipment together. So I also moved or relocated from Cape Town up to Joburg because this is where my family is. So it really was like an emergency jump on an aeroplane and get here. And then, I managed to borrow a bike from one mate and a spare trainer from another mate. And then we've also got a pool. So I managed to set up a little rig that I can actually do a bit of swimming. So it hasn't been that bad. I haven't really noticed the last 3 weeks disappear.
And it hasn't been too cold in the pool?
I feel really silly, but I actually jump into my wetsuit, so only my fingers and my toes and my nose gets cold. So it's actually pretty comfortable.
Oh, excellent. Gavin, you've got a bit of a different story. You have a visual impairment. Tell us a bit about that and when you first found that out.
Yeah, so I've got the sight condition is called Stargardt's disease. And it's a form of macular degeneration. So the nerve endings on the last layer of your retina, where you would use like those nerve endings to read detail or anything you'd use central vision to see something. Those nerve endings are actually dying off. So I only have a peripheral vision to get around and to try and read my laptop and things like that. So it's been a challenge, but it's been progressive. So it was picked up when I was about 6 years old, and my family they knew about it because my dad, he had the dominant gene. So obviously he had the condition and he struggled to see. So they kind of expected that some of the siblings would have it. And then after doing genetic testing in 2001, it turned out that my mom also had the gene. It obviously was, it was dormant. So there was no chance that my sister or I would actually have normal sight. So it's, it's in our family, and because it's been progressing, you kind of get used to it and you figure out ways to get around when it does decrease, or it's just one of those things.
But that, Gavin, hasn't stopped you at all. From a young age, you've always been involved in sport and different activities, from cricket to volleyball, motocross, golf. Tell us about growing up and the challenges that you had and the sports you played.
My parents always supported me, and they tried to encourage me to participate with able-bodied people, and it just became part of who I was. I got a competitive edge in me from when I was quite young. So I always played cricket with the guys who could see properly, and I did all the school sports because sport flows through my veins. And I've tried quite a few different things, like you mentioned. I think one of the things that gave my mom the most grey hairs was buying myself a motocross bike.
Yeah, I'm sure.
When you can't really see past the handlebars, it's quite a tricky thing. So, but I've always wanted to do things like that. When my first experience of sport for people with disabilities was the blind cricket, and I played for around about 4 years. Played for Gauteng, and I tried to get into the national team, but because of the logistics of how the team gets built up and things like that, it just wasn't the right fit for me, because my speciality was actually being a wicketkeeper, and I was one of the first people ever take a catch behind the wickets in blind cricket, and also to hit a six in blind cricket. It just wasn't done when the game started developing. And I think the skills that I'd picked up from when I was playing able-body cricket, it was an easy game for me. But I think it came more down to like ball skills and things like that, not that it was easy. And then, you know, I think you go through phases in your life where you kind of get to the top of your game, or you think the top is, and you want to try something new. So that's kind of how I transitioned into my next sport. I was at university studying sports psychology when it was still RAU. And kind of towards the end of the year, I said to one of my mates, you know, like, I'd really like to ride the 94.7. And he said to me, Gav, dude, don't even bother. You'll probably never make it. And it was probably the thing he shouldn't have said, because, you know, that's kind of what inspires me, is when people tell me I can't do something, I need to go out and prove them wrong. So I actually entered the race on the last day that entries were open. And I think I bought a bike for like $400 from Cash Converters like 6 weeks before the race. And I managed to finish in 3.5 hours. So I kind of figured out that there was something special going on there, and it took me a little while to get into that system, but I met a guy who really helped me through the ropes. His name is Sinyo, and he was the head of para cycling in Gauteng, and he eventually became the national convener. But you know, you always need someone to kind of through the ropes and get you kick-started. So for the cycling, he definitely was one, and he was a big help, because eventually he got me introduced to Gary Bieneke, who I started racing with, and I learned a lot from competing with him both on the track and the road. And then eventually I got hold of, or Sinyo got hold of a guy called Grenville Scullard, and he was a track specialist. I mean, he qualified to go to Barcelona for track cycling and that. And, you know, in the beginning, he said to me, I was too small to be a track cyclist. I was too skinny. And after a little bit of convincing, he actually agreed to it. And that's how the road to Beijing started for me. And you know, those two guys actually put a lot of work into my training and making sure there were funds available so that we could travel and race and eventually go through the whole qualification process.
And Kevin, I mean, there was a very quick transition, essentially, from riding the 94.7 to competing at the Beijing Olympics or Paralympics in 2008. I mean, that's remarkable in terms of, you know, for a cyclist, you normally need years and years and years in your legs just to be able to compete. Yeah, you only had a few years, and now you were at the top level of your game.
Yeah, look, it wasn't an easy 8 years or 7.5 years, however many it took me to get there. But I do believe that all the sport that I'd played when I was younger actually built the agility and, you know, the base strength of actually putting this whole thing together. And then I think a combination of that and the right coaching is actually what got me to the Beijing Paralympic Games, because it was never really a dream of mine. I think every sportsman that watches the Olympics, they have like, I don't know, there's like this intrinsic feeling that, geez, I'd love to go to the Olympics one day. But it only became a reality for me in 2007 when I qualified for Beijing at the World Championships in France. So yeah, it's a lot of sacrifice, and I can tell you that for a person with a disability, especially one with a sight impairment who can't drive, the biggest challenges actually are getting to training. Sometimes the training sessions weren't as difficult as getting around and making sure that you get from work to the track, or from work to the gym afterwards and then home again after that. It was actually those things that that were more challenging for me than actually competing.
And I mean, you didn't only just compete at the Beijing Olympics, you actually won a bronze medal. So in 8 years, you went from buying a 400 Rand bike at Cash Converters, riding a 330 at the 94.7, which a lot of people would die for. And then you won an Olympic bronze medal. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a journey. I don't regret any of it. Obviously, there's some sacrifices you need to make, like you don't really get to go on all the family holidays or sleep in on the weekends and things like that, because it's either training or racing but you know, a lot of people talk about a turning point in their life, and I definitely think that event for me as a whole was the turning point for me, or the thing that defined me, because it is a big event. And you know, it was difficult for us to gauge, because, you know, okay, so I raced in Beijing on a tandem, just to let everybody know. So all the races like 94.7s and things like that I did, those were on a single bike. And that was probably the second set of gray hairs that I gave my mom, because, you know, it's not something that you can do, because if you can't see, you know, you have to follow the wheel in front of the guy in front of you, or you're going 80 k's an hour down Jan Smuts Hill when you're doing a race like that. So it's pretty dangerous. And a lot of people say to me, how do you do it? And I don't have an answer for you. I think it's just something that I wanted to achieve. And that's actually what made me happy. And hopefully I get a chance to tell you about something that I did a bit earlier this year, a bit later on. So we'll touch on that. But anyway, so I raced on a tandem, and eventually you become like really good friends with the pilot. And I actually, the guy that rode with me in Beijing, his name is Mike Thompson. His brother is Jay Thompson, and his dad is a legend from the past in road cycling and track cycling as well. So, you know, it's about putting a combination of guys together that are going to go fast. And I think that's pretty much where the goal actually ended up. And I don't really remember a lot of the competition at the Beijing Games, because I think we worked so hard and we were so focused on competing that I think you block the rest of the world out, because you've worked so hard and you've got one job and one focus, and that's what you go there to do. So yeah, I mean, it was a journey, and you know, you as a sportsman, you need to learn how to develop and adapt, because we actually went there to win the pursuit. We were on world record times in training for the 4,000 meter pursuit on the track. And I can't tell you what happened, but somewhere around about 2 kilometers into the race, I knew it was all over. It just didn't feel like the speed was there, the power was in the wrong place. And you know these things because you've done so many hours of training. So it's, as an athlete at that kind of level, you know exactly what your body's going to do. So it was a bit disappointing for me. But the next day we had another shot at the 1,000 meter time trial. We actually broke the Paralympic record, and we were the 4th last team to ride. And 2 Australian teams and the Brit team all rode after us, and each one of them broke the record by like 0.02 of a second. So I missed out on a second bronze by, I don't know, we worked it out eventually to, if we had gone 24 centimeters faster, I would have a second bronze medal. It's crazy.
And tell me, Gavin, you know, having watched quite a bit of track cycling myself, it's incredibly fast, it's incredibly technical, and, you know, it's difficult for a single bike. It must be significantly more difficult for a tandem bike.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever ridden a tandem knows that it's like driving a limousine. So, the bike's longer, it doesn't respond as quickly. But when you do actually crank it up to speed, those things are like bullet trains. I mean, I think we qualified in the 200-meter sprint in the event that I won the medal in. I think we clocked out at about 69 k's an hour at our top speed. And that's in 200 meters. So, you're really able to put a lot of watts into the pedals and crank it up. And it was actually quite funny. So you do a qualifier over 200 meters on your own, and then I don't know if anyone's ever seen it. It's where you race with two guys against each other, and they're like looking at each other and watching all the tactics. And the Australian commentator actually said it's the rugby match of track cycling, because in the semi-finals, we actually raced against Australia. And there's some really nice photos up on my Facebook page of us with the Australian guys. And it really was that. I mean, we ended up crashing in one of the semi-finals against them. But it's just that exact, the way that he explained it as the rugby match was exactly like it was. Like we were bumping into each other and racing for the line and that. And it was just an amazing experience. And I actually think that the crash was the pinnacle for me. Lots of people win medals at the Olympic Games. Okay, I say lots, but
not so many.
Not that many, but you know what I'm saying. Like there's a medal count for however many events there are. But I think the crash was actually one of the highlights for me, because I think we were on BBC News for like 4 days. This photo of Mike and I like sprawled across the tandem or the track with the tandem like sliding down. It was actually quite a spectacular crash.
Oh, fantastic. And tell me, does Michael get recognized with medal as well?
Yes, it's actually one of the few sports where the pilot actually does get a medal as well. I know some of the running events they don't, but I think it's because he's got such a big responsibility over his athletes. I mean, I've ridden track on my own, but some of the bigger road races around the country, but you wouldn't be able to do that on a normal or under normal circumstances with a sight impairment. So I think the pilots have got a very big responsibility, and I'm really grateful that they actually do get recognized. So he definitely did get a medal as well.
Yeah. And Gavin, Paralympics didn't stop there. You then traded in your bike for a rowing boat, and you very quickly ended up at the Para World Champs in South Korea, where again you won a medal.
Yeah,
want to?
Yeah, that was another journey, and I think, like I said, there was that defining moment of me going to the Paralympics, and that was the moment that I could springboard the next thing from. 7-8 years of your life is a lot, and I think it was just time for me to change focus a little bit, and I managed to get a scholarship at UJ to help them restart the rowing program in, I think it was 2010 when I started studying there. And I studied sports communication, and then I went on and finished my honors in sports management. But I don't think it would have been a possibility maybe if I hadn't actually have gone to Beijing and done so well. So I think it's one of those things where people recognize that I am willing to put the hard work in. And when I actually put my mind to something, I don't really stop. Like I have to make sure that I go and become a master of what I'm doing. And the rowing was just the next phase. Like, the program was brand new. Another guy that I made friends with in rowing, Cliff, him and I used to go out to Rudderplaat, just the two of us, and we actually were meant to race in a mixed cox 4. So you need 2 guys and 2 girls of all varied disabilities, and we didn't know where to find these girls because girls with disabilities, they're not as outgoing and sporty as guys. So him and I used to go and smash it out at Rudderplaat on our own and get crashed by waves and didn't have a clue what was going on. And that's when Rowing South Africa got the help from a guy called Marco Gaglioni. He actually coached the gold medal para rowing team in 2004. Was it? No, 2008, sorry, also in Beijing. And Marco came out from Italy and he started putting the program together. And again, he was like, besides the people that helped me get the scholarship at rowing, I spent the most time with him. And, you know, your coach actually becomes your mentor in each of these sports. And you've got to just filter as much information as you possibly can and learn as quick as possible. And for me, being an athlete before, it was about learning how to row, because everyone thinks, oh, rowers have got such big, strong backs and arms and everything. But the easiest transition from one sport to the next is actually cycling to rowing, because a lot of the power actually comes from your leg drive. So it's such an easy transition, and you just got to learn the finesse of a finish. So, and that's where the speed of the boat comes from. So again, it was just mastering something that I'd sunk my teeth into. And again, a lot of disappointment. We tried to qualify for the London Games, and at the last World Cup in Serbia, about 3 months before, we needed to come first or second in that race. And we came third by like a canvas, so about a meter. And I didn't qualify for London. And I was disappointed, but I thought to myself, you know what, you've come this far, you need to make sure you go to one more international race, which was World Champs in South Korea the following year, 2013. And we managed to come away with a medal there as well with my crew.
I mean, Gavin, you're very hard on yourself, I must say. But, you know, you say, yes, it's easy to transition from cycling to rowing. But the majority of rowers that are going to the Olympics or Paralympics or medaling are guys that have been doing rowing for years and years and years and years, like their lives. You've just come from hopped off a bike, hopped into a boat, and won a World Championship bronze medal. That's a phenomenal achievement. It really is.
No, thanks. Just hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Gavin, you hung up the boat and you got back onto the bike partly, and you became a triathlete. And last year you came second in the SA Champs and second in the African Champs. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah, so that was a new phase in my life. Like I said, with the cycling, the rowing obviously came to an end as well. And I actually made a decision to move down to Cape Town. It was something that I've wanted to do for many years. When I went down there on a tour when I was, I think, 14. When I got home, I said to my mom, you know what? I want to live in Cape Town one day. And it just so happened that as your life grows and you meet people and make connections, that a door opened there for me. And it literally took me about 2 weeks, and I moved from Joburg down to Cape Town. And it took a while, but I started like infiltrating the system and making some friends in that. And I met a guy who I started riding some tandem with. And it was actually on one of the coffee rides on a Sunday that I met up with this guy called Mike Harris, and we were chatting. And I said to him, I want to do a triathlon one day. I've done some as a team and always done the cycling, but I'd like to do one on my own. Or do a full triathlon and start racing. And I've got a mate, his name is David Jones, and he's number one in South Africa, and he beat me at Africa Champs as well. And he does triathlons, also a visually impaired guy. And I don't know why, but we became very good friends off of the bike and out of racing. But when we race against each other, it's like real competition, and you hear these stories so often. And Mike and I decided to team up and see if we could give David a run for his money. So it's been about 2 years now. And again, the first year, it really is just about trying to figure it all out. Like, you know, it's hard enough doing one of those sports on their own. Like we race the sprint distance, so it's not very far, but everything is high intensity. So I had to learn how to swim, basically. I think I had swum in a dam about 3 times before the first race Mike and I did together. So it was crazy, but it's, again, something that I really wanted to do. And we grew and we developed. And at the beginning of last year, we got a coach. Again, another influential person in the sport that I do, and someone that I look up to and respect a lot. And Viv Williams decided to eventually start coaching me, because I'd asked her a couple of times, and I said, Viv, come on, man, I want to do a race. Will you help me out? Just coach me a bit. And she just said, no, you need to go and learn. So that's what we did. And eventually she agreed to it. And although I didn't beat David at SA Champs or the previous Africa Champs, we did beat him at triathlon champs, and it's just because he's got a swimming background. So we'll see. We were trying to see if we could both qualify for the Paralympics for Tokyo this year, but obviously with it all being cancelled and postponed to next year, I guess it just gives me another year to get a bit faster.
Is that the aim with triathlon, is to get to the Paralympics?
Yes, I understand completely that it can take anything from 4 to 8 years to develop an athlete and to get to a level where you can actually compete like that. And I'm only 2 years young as a triathlete.
Yeah.
But you know, I've got a lot of experience from the past that I'm putting together, and I don't know if we're going to qualify. Like you need quite a bit of funding for triathlon. I mean, it's 3 different sports, and to actually qualify to go to World Championships, you need to go and race at a lot of the ITU events to build up points and things like that, and it's quite costly to get things like that right. So I've raced a couple of times overseas and it's gone okay. Like, we've made top 10s, but it definitely is something that I'm going to work towards. I probably still have 1 more Olympic cycle that I can actually get through. Can I just put this phone down quickly? That's ringing us. Sorry about that. Hope you can edit that part out. Yeah, so Tokyo might still happen. I'm not sure. I think it's around about 500 odd days till the Paralympics starts, which is, it's enough time. I've got about 3 or 4 training blocks that I could actually get through and grow and develop, depending on how the lockdown affects us. But I'm going through a bit of a transition stage at the moment. Like, Mike and I started this club called Delta Sport about 2 years ago as well. And I think each sport that I've done, I've wanted to grow and develop and try and inspire other people to join me in the sport that I'm doing. And it's actually going well. So, you know, it's as much as I'm trying to inspire able bodies, I'm also trying to get other people with disabilities to do sport, because it goes a lot further than just being active. There's networking opportunities, and you learn so much through being a sportsman. So that's kind of where I'm going. But obviously the able body side is growing as well, because we're inspiring so many other people.
Absolutely.
I've got a small goal that's been sitting with me for quite some time, and I'd actually like to do a half Ironman, but on my own. Like, I want to ride my own time trial bike, and I want to run my own race and things like that. So it's something that I want to do. I'm going to have to look around for a little bit of help. We'll see how it goes, but I think I'll try and focus on the next year and see if we get to Tokyo. And if we don't, then I'll start looking at maybe some 70.3s and just do them, because it's challenge that I need to tick a box with, but hopefully inspire some other able-bodied people that, like me, didn't want to do a triathlon because they're scared of the swim or whichever section that they don't want to do. But it really is possible. You just got to put your mind to it and give it a little bit of time, and you can do it. It really isn't an impossible task.
You're talking to me straight in the face there, Gavin. I get in the swimming pool and I drown. But my cycle and my run is great. But yeah, the swim is the thing that's held me back. Gavin, tell us or chat to us about the double century.
That is, I have to say that of all the glam competitions that I guess I've been to racing overseas, that has got to be one of my favorite formats of a race that I've ever done. I did it 3 years in a row, from I think it was 2016, 2017 and 2018. I rode in a team that was sponsored by Double Century, by Coronation. They're the sponsors of Double Century. And we rode in a tandem team of 6 riders. And I don't know, it's something about the format of 12 guys, or we had a mixed team of tandems that you ride together, and we've always wanted to either finish as the winning team or all finish together. And I don't know, maybe it's got something to do with getting a tandem over Trudeau's Pass and eventually over 200 kilometers. I'm not too sure, but I don't know. I don't really like those long distance events, but I think because it gets broken up into 3 smaller ones, it's a little bit more manageable. But yeah, some great experiences, and I've also again made some amazing friends and contacts through it. A friend of mine that owns Manic Cycles in Worcester, Francois, like him and I chat about things all the time, and I worked with him a little bit at the Epic before it got cancelled this year. So yeah, it's a tough race. I mean, you kind of get to that 110k mark after, I think we did it in about 3 hours 15 or whatever, the first leg. And that's normally when I'm finished the road race and I get off my bike and go and have a hot dog and a Coke or something. But you've got another 100 odd Ks to get through. And that the 3 sisters right at the end, like just before you get back to the finish, man, when your legs are absolutely poked. Every single time I've done it, I actually don't know how I get over those hills. I cramp and I don't know, but I think the team format of everyone trying to finish together is what gets you to the finish.
Yeah. And I mean, you've had a phenomenal career, some huge highlights. Is there one moment that stands out to you that you will remember for the rest of your life as that was my moment, or is that still coming?
Look, I've had a couple, and I want to just say, I said earlier there was something that I did this year that stands out for me. It's definitely in the top drawer of things that I've done. I actually, one of the guys that I've recruited into triathlon, it's a funny story. Like, we're so similar. He also has Stargardt's disease like I have, just a slightly different strain where it got a lot worse very quickly. But he also started cycling, and he rode on his own, and he also rode a motocross bike. And it turns out that he lives like 3 kilometers away from me, and I didn't actually know him this whole time. So we got him to do his first SA Champs. He still hates me for it because like I did my first race, you don't really know the ropes and things. And I made him do SA Triathlon Champs as his first event. So he's still trying to get me back for that one. But we wanted to get him down and let him ride the cycle tour. And it actually turned out that for some reason, like the guy that he was going to ride with decided to ride on his own bike. And the last resort was actually me piloting the tandem for him. And, I understand now what what a big responsibility the pilots that I've raced with over the years had. I can't actually explain the feeling that I got afterwards of getting that guy to the finish, and we didn't win. I mean, we did it in like 4.5 hours or something, but the joy that I got of actually helping someone else get through an event like that it's definitely one of the things that is going to stand out for me a long time in my sporting career.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, just to help someone else get that experience and let them feel the joy of actually being able to compete in a race like that. It was an incredible experience. I don't actually know how to explain it, but that's probably one of the highlights for me. And then I have to say that standing on the podium in Beijing is definitely the pinnacle for me. It may never happen again. I don't know how well I'm going to get my head around the triathlon stuff, but up until this point, I think that is definitely the highlight for me. And it's something that flashes back through my mind on a regular basis. Especially when you have a tough training session, or maybe you're going through a little bit of a tough time in your life. You always need to go back to a point where you've actually achieved something. And that helps you reset the gears and actually carry on.
Yeah. Gavin, talking about tough times, I mean, if you had to give advice to a youngster who's in a similar position to you, you would imagine you could quite easily get down very quickly and struggle to get back to a place of happiness. What would you suggest or recommend for a youngster that has just found out about their condition, still has a love for sport and wants to do sport, but just doesn't know how to, or has lost that I don't even know what to call it, that will to do it? What would you say to them?
Do you know what? This goes for people that are able-bodied and people with disabilities. The most difficult thing is actually to get off the couch. It's a lot easier to sit there and go, oh my gosh, the whole world is now decided to crash and burn. And no one's actually going to make your mind up for you and make you make the decision to go and try something. You can explain something to someone as many times as you want and motivate them as much as you want, but until you decide that you actually are going to try something, it's not going to happen. So I think if you want to do a triathlon, for example, and you've never done one before, go and do a park run. Even if you walk 5 kilometers because you've never run in your life before, the feeling and the sense of achievement that you get when you cross the finish line is the motivation that you're going to do to go 2 minutes faster next week or 5 minutes faster the week after that. And once you've got that right, you'll be like, you know what? I'm going to try and see if I can find a bicycle and ride on a trainer for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And you can't eat an elephant in one bite. That's one thing I've learned. Like, if you're going to work towards something, you need to break it down into manageable pieces, and you do it in little bits. It's the only way to do something. And when you break it down into those small parts, then it's achievable. You can do anything you want to if you put your mind to it.
Well, just from listening to your story, Gavin, it couldn't be more true. Gavin, it's been fantastic chatting to you. Thanks for joining us today on Sport SA Daily Diaries. We look forward to seeing you in the next Olympics or Paralympics, and hopefully, probably, fingers crossed, on a podium.
Well, let's hope so. And thank you so much for letting me share my story. And if anybody wants to get some more information about triathlon, or they want to start triathlon and they need some guidance, I'm more than happy to help you. You just send me an email. You can look me up on Facebook, and we'll see. Hopefully I can lead from the front.
Well, you certainly are already. Gavin, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Have a good day. Cheers.
You too. Cheers.
Join us again for tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we'll be chatting to South African mountain biker Amy Beth McDougall.